Assist with help.
Okay, greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening for our special board meeting tonight. It is Wednesday, June 12th, 2024. For the record, it is approximately 5:45 p.m. I would like to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, can you please have a roll call?
Member Concha. Here. Member King.
Here.
Secretary Trujillo.
Here.
Vice President Sprague. Here. President Flores.
Here.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If we could please stand. Superintendent Lane, if you could please lead us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item D is our land acknowledgement statement. It is respectful to recognize the unique and enduring relationship that exists between indigenous people and their traditional territories. We acknowledge that we are on the historic homeland of the Red Willow people within the original territory of Taos Pueblos. This acknowledgement will oblige as a reminder of our ongoing efforts to respectfully recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Red Willow people whose land and water we benefit from in this great valley today. Item E is approval of the meeting agenda. Are there any proposed or recommended changes to the agenda as presented? Hearing none, I will proceed to make a motion to approve the meeting agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a second from Vice President Cynthia. Please have a roll call.
Member Concha.
Yes.
Member King.
Yes.
Secretary Trujillo.
Yes.
Vice President Sprague.
Yes.
President Flores.
Yes. At this time, I would like to request a moment of silence in honor and remembrance of one of our Taos Municipal School students who passed away this past week. Our community is a very tight community, and with the loss of this student, we send out our condolences to the family and the friends of this student. Send our prayers and sincerest condolences. So at this time, if we could please have a brief moment of silence. Thank you, board, for that. We do send our prayers and condolences to the family of this student, and want to let them know that they are in our thoughts and in our prayers as they move through this difficult time. Item F is public comment. I don't see anybody in the audience from the public. Do we have anybody on Zoom
No.
or online? Having no members of the public present, we will forego our public comment section of the agenda and move forward to item G, which is the consent agenda. There are 4 items on the consent agenda that were provided to the board in the packet. If there are any questions, comments, or concerns regarding the consent agenda? I do have just quick questions or comments in regards to item 1 of the consent agenda that I'd like to just touch on briefly. Item G1 is review and possible approval of MOU with Taos Municipal School District. Taos Municipal School District to use facilities allowing Taos County to provide evacuation centers in emergencies falling within the county's jurisdiction through the 2024-2025 school year. The only question I have on it, when we look at the MOU that was provided, Taos County's responsibilities and duties, I just wanted to ask our superintendent and also confer with the board on item 3.1 on page 1. Where it states, provide security measures, assist with housekeeping efforts, cleaning supplies, and other necessary supplies for upkeep of the facilities. And on item 2, it also says Taos County will assist Taos schools with any other resources needed to protect and secure the designated locations. I just wanted to see how the board felt in the superintendent in regards to it's my sentiments that if Taos County is gonna be utilizing our facilities, rather than assist with housekeeping efforts, cleaning supplies and other necessary supplies for upkeep of the facilities, I feel that it should state provide, housekeeping efforts. I would, hate to, overtask our staff and our budget in the providing of, staff for housekeeping efforts, cleaning supplies and other necessary supplies facilities. And also, rather than on item 2 where it says Taos County will assist Taos schools with other resources needed, that it should state Taos County will provide Taos schools with any other resources needed to protect and secure the designated locations. Other than that, I have no issue with the agreement. Superintendent Layton, do you have any comments or questions? I'm happy to entertain any thoughts.
I absolutely agree with that. I think also we should have our staff available
Yes,
because we are providing those facilities as well. And having done so that we can also, in partnership
yes,
with the county, have our staff there as well. But I am okay with providing, yes.
So do we have to send this back to them to redo the drawing?
We would have to resend so that they are okay with that. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
would that be a foreseeable issue, in regards to maybe, I just feel that I know that we, of course, will provide staff and we have supplies there. Mr.
I'm
Head.
gonna go ahead and launch it.
Board members, President Vice. Yeah. I'm sure Mr. Jaramillo would be more than willing to change the verbiage in that. That's probably something they worked on in the past and maybe was never caught. I actually agree with what you're saying. So I don't think it'll be an issue. He was very forthcoming in giving it back to us the first time. So I don't see an issue.
And maybe rather than striking assist, maybe assist and provide housekeeping efforts and clean supplies as needed.
I actually put it in the notes because I just didn't make sense what you're saying, and also what Dr. Layton said, and we'll probably have them there. Our people as well, because this would be in event of an emergency.
Yes, sir.
So I think we would be part as the same, then opposite if it was our emergency, like our unification. I think it's gotta serve both purposes. So
And I think-
absolutely, I think Mr. Harvey would be too.
And we're happy to work with them. If there is an emergency within our community, a lot of the individuals more than likely being affected would be our own community, parents, students, staff. But as a joint effort, if we could just include that additional verbiage.
Absolutely.
So how would it read, assist / provide or assistant, or are we striking assist and
Fully.
replacing it with provide?
We would place provide and assist.
Yeah,
Because with the slash it's in 4
Okay,
and we want
so
to provide
provide
complement
and
and
assist.
assist.
Okay, thank you. And so you're saying, excuse me, President Flores, Marcos, are you saying that we can go ahead and do you think that this is fine to approve without sending it back? I think we should send it back.
I would say since you already, it sounds like we should send it back because I think proper verbiage is what we.
I
need.
just, shall we table it?
well, no, we could, if it's the board, we could, in the motion, approve the consent agenda
Pending there.
with the revisions, pending their approval for
Yeah.
the revisions.
President Flores, in an emergency, the county will probably be asking for emergency funding. So on that note, they would be more than able to provide everything that is needed during an evacuation type of scenario.
Yes, and they would be the fiscal agent and
Yes, they would be the fiscal agent, but they would have the financial resources. He wouldn't come to us. So I think the manager would have no problem in approving this.
So
If we indicate that.
if I could make a motion to remove item G1 to approve separately from the consent agenda. Could I add the necessary language to the motion?
I'll second it.
So we have a motion to remove item G1 from the consent agenda at this time. To be approved following the consent agenda to add additional language to the MOUs. We have a second from Vice President Cynthia. Could we get roll call?
Member Concha,
Yes.
Member King,
Yes.
Secretary Trujillo,
Yes.
Vice President Sprague,
Yes.
President Flores.
Yes.
I have one other question, different consent agenda.
So we do have a discussion, so my vote would be yes on the consent agenda, so we did call the roll. Yes, sir. Discussion,
You just asked for if anyone had any questions from the consent agenda. I had one quick
oh,
one.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Do you mind?
Please.
Okay, and I'm not sure who could answer this, if anyone, but on the appendix C, programmatic stipends and sponsorships, I see it says 23/24 retro. I think that means retroactive. I'm just wondering why that's in there, what that means.
You're talking about which one again?
Appendix C
For item G.
for G, it's in the G3. Mhm. I'm just curious what that meant, 23/24 retro. Like, did we have to change something that was in last year's or?
This is your talking about the collective bargaining agreement, right? You got it. Ms. Richard, you wanna?
Thank you. It's a simple question. I just didn't know why it was written on there. Thank you.
Yes, of course. President Flores, Superintendent, Dr. Megan, members of the board, colleagues. The question that you have, Board Vice President Spray was in regards to the 23-24.
Where it says retro underneath. I just wondered what that meant. Thank you.
The beginning of the 23-24 collective bargaining season a year ago.
Right?
The collective bargaining was partially completed. And
Oh.
the piece that was not completed was the appendix, where we talked about the co-curricular and curricular stipends.
Right.
And that is where we were, when we were negotiating for the 23-24, the compensation package for last year was approved. And the piece with regards to leaves, which is also was put aside for the following year, the appendixes were left to negotiate, which we completed that piece. And that is why this is retroactive, because now the 23-24 collective bargaining agreement has been finalized.
I see.
And so payments for the stipends will be retroactive to the start of the school year. That is for your, the additional FTEs with regards to special ed staff, the body fluid stipend, the retention piece for special ed teachers. Those are new pieces that have been, that will be part of the 23-24 budget and must be paid out before June 30th, if approved. The union has ratified the agreement, and the tentative agreements that you see signed by our attorney Gino Zamora and Francis on,
Mhm.
but show, where the redactions are and
Do you by any chance know the total amount of dollars that will be?
I don't, and Ms. Brazier is the person that will be charged with the determining the staff recommendations. This will not be put on principals in that she needs to apply information that's in, I believe it's NOVA, the special ed database, and they've been working on numbers and determining who is over on the overages, who actually qualifies for the body fluid stipend. And so those will be in either today or tomorrow from Ms. Brazier. So there's not an
So
actual
we're just
amount.
approving the concept of it?
Well,
not the dollar?
And I wish Ms. Maria Fidalgo or Ms. Tanya would know, I'm sorry, but I don't have the actual total amount. But I do know that the amount was figured into the budget. I think the last one.
And so part of this is the venture from the collective bargaining agreement, and so we're having to pay that from the recalculations that, of course,
Mhm.
both parties.
Yeah. Marcos, I don't know that it's I don't know, does anyone else feel we need that? I just was curious how much money we were talking about, that's all. If no one else,
But it has been budgeted for.
it has, okay.
It's not an exorbitant amount, it is an amount, I know that was going back and forth, and I was hoping that the tentative agreement would show that, signed by Gino and Francis Hahn, so that I could give you
Yeah,
that.
it generally should be. I think in the future, we should know what we're actually voting on if we can. President Flores, I think the meeting that I ran that you weren't able to be at recently, there was the board was told that we need to pay more attention to stipends, way more attention than we have been paying to them. That's one of the reasons I'm asking these questions, just so I think you missed that meeting. Anyway. That's what I have to say about that.
Do we want to, at our next regular meeting, have that, item, the amount just brought forward for,
Yeah, why does, that's a good idea.
just for,
Flores, I like that.
I didn't hear the conversation.
President Flores said at the next regular meeting, we'd like the amount brought forward with this,
for the retroactive.
for the record, that we know what we're doing.
For a total.
Yes.
Mhm. Yes, please, thank you. Great suggestion. Mark. Okay, I appreciate everyone's time for digging a little deeper on that one.
And Ms. Winter, since you're up there, is there anything that you can highlight real quick, I guess, on the draft collective bargaining agreement that, the board may want to highlight?
Or, do you want me to speak, President Flores, on the retroactive, the 23-24?
No, the 2025.
Okay, so the two highlights for sure are, it is for a 2-year agreement, meaning that only compensation will be brought up in the next couple of years. The non-monetary, which are the working conditions, nothing has changed. There's no proposal with working conditions. The compensation package was focused around the non-certified employees. The agreement does take into account the state mandated 3%. The union has asked, and of course, this was through the negotiations back and forth, that any additional monies would be put into the lowest paid staff members. And that piece, I was very happy that we were able to get to a point where we were able to fix some of the compaction that happens in salary schedules. By them actually saying, okay, we've applied all 3% to all salary schedules. And then specific to the years of service. So to give you an example, custodians, 229, they are starting in year 1 at 30,334. But yet, if you work between 1 and 15 years, $1,000 will be added to every live cell wherever there's a person that sits on the salary schedule. $1,200 between 16 and 30 and 31 plus years. This total package, I do know, as far as compensation above the state mandated 3%, is doing around 140,000. That has been tentatively agreed upon. The 3% is not part of that. That was really the biggest. That was the number one highlight I wanted to point out. The closest one. Yes, but I'm not sure if it's actually per person. This is what Lynn did provide, but okay, excuse me, if you don't mind, President Flores, I have to. One of the questions, how much are the retroactive 23-24 for the stipends? How much was budgeted? That's the question from Vice Sprague of approximately.
On the lower, this one, it's 26,000.
Oh, 28,500 is the total amount that it will need to be paid retroactive, and that's with the fringe benefits.
Yes. Well, President is about to.
On top of that, and you should add about another 40%.
45% on top of that.
So we're looking at a total of 28,500 plus 40%. 50,000.
Thank you, appreciate it.
President Potter?
Yes.
I find that interesting, and I can see how that is effective. That's a good, I call it catch from the union that, because it, when there's these increases, it seems like the low, the newer people, let's say like the custodians, the 3%, it hits them. But then it hits the other level, the higher paid, a little bit of more. But then it seems like after a while, these lower paid kind of catch up,
Correct.
and it's proven that there's such a disparity there. And so this is where you have factored in this solution. Is that what you call it, a solution to that disparity?
Partially, President Flores and, Board Member Trujillo, to fix the entire disparity of all salary schedules, we're talking moving around $500,000. Clearly, it has to be done in baby steps. This is the third year in a row that the union has focused any additional monies on the lowest paid. And because one of the things that was brought up, and this was a really good example, in the area of secretaries, you have in the secretary salary schedule, you have your 199 secretaries, they work a 7.5-hour day, a 209 secretary that works a 7.5-hour day, a 219 and a 229. But one of the main disparities there was if you divided the salary in the cells by 219, they were actually getting paid more per hour than the secretaries that worked 229. So monies can, obviously, we can't fix all cells. The union's focus, and it was management's feeling to try to fix as many of these disparities as we can. And that is by saying, that is why you'll see in the secretary line item, okay, 229 secretaries, that's why they're up like 3,700 as opposed to 1,500. Now, Maria Fidalgo was with her Excel spreadsheets during the whole negotiation process. While we would be, I want to say it's back and forth negotiations, the amounts were actually being run side by side, so she can actually tell the union, okay, you're at this piece. So it was a really good process, and it's not where we want to be clearly, but it is definitely, we're in a better place. And then the other situation that we have had over the years, where we do have those compactions where you can't pump too much money into, say, year 0 to 10, because then what you just said earlier, the salaries butt up to each other. So why work 11 years, having 11 years of experience, if the person who has 1 year of experience is making $100 less? So that's what that compaction is. So but yeah, we're trying to, and the union has agreed, we're trying to meet the, well, you have the county and the city starting pay for, say, a financial specialist bookkeeper at 33,000. Yes, taking into account they may work 245 days and they work 8 hours a day. We were losing people in the first 0 to 10 years because they can make more at the county or the city. And so that the union also took into account, let's try to pump in some of the monies into the first 10 years on some of the salaries and slowly try to fix the other disparities throughout. It is going to fix a handful. I'm really happy about these outcomes. And of course, I would not start, I've already done, I completed the salary schedules for the 3% because we had to for the budget. I will begin tomorrow. I know that's only after the board approves. We don't want to be presumptuous and start that.
But I have another thought, President Flores. See, and on that note, what the legislature does not understand, again, is that they can call it 3%. But what it causes over here on this end is huge, because again, it puts us in a quandary to be able to fix. Again, I'm gonna call it a disparity because it is, and it's an unfortunate, because you want the people that, I always say that, a laborer is worthy of his hire. You know, they should get paid and be happy and do the work based on what they're getting paid. And, but then also, where does the money come from? Where does the money come from? And then it affects our grants people, because there's no increase on the grants for the 3%. It's coming out of our SCG money. So again, it's all of this, money quandary that we have to fix over here on our end to be able to work out a good budget and see where we're at financially, because I probably 90% of our budget is salaries.
The benefits, yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, 90%?
90 or 91%.
90% of it. So again, it's quite the challenge for you all. And I'm sure it's, but it helps us to understand, you know, by having these discussions, what it is that we face and what you all are facing. But again, we want to be competitive with the county. We want to be competitive with the city. We don't want to be losing people to them, and people that have been trained and know, let's put it, every government, and I consider the municipal schools as a government type, has its own language. And to train somebody in the schools type of is very, very different than the town, and even for the county, it's very, very different. So to lose someone and try to train somebody else, that is really, really difficult. So I appreciate the fact that you all are doing the work that's needed to bring us into compliance with our staff and with the budget. With the budget.
Correct.
So that was one highlight with the pay, and then you mentioned two.
Also, the other highlight was just the fact that it was an agreement, on the 24-25, that it is for 2 years. So that next year we shouldn't anticipate anything other than negotiating compensation. And that's always a really big thing. We're like, because that's when it gets the working condition side of it. That gets to be very tricky. And the other highlight, before I do forget, is the payment to if you look at it, well, you don't need to look at it, but I'll point out on Appendix B for next year, teachers 183 days, of course, paid on their daily rate, and educational assistants will jump up to 182. And I believe we have a few others that are moving around the non-certified EAs. That'll be at 182, and that was also factored in, correct, for that daily rate to meet the calendar as well.
Or questions, instructional hours, did they remain the same? What are the instructional hours?
Correct, Mr. Flores, 6.5 hours a day for the certified staff and educational assistants.
Was there any conversation about increasing instructional hours?
Yes, there was, and of course, the conversation on increasing the hours for the additional pay, which at this point, I know the day was the focus and the concentration to get the staff the additional day. But the hour, no, not without negotiating hourly rates.
Going back to this, the stipends, I did see here in the document provided that it says that Ms. Lynn does not have any calculations in here for the contract staff, as they do not receive stipends, so I guess their contract staff won't be receiving stipends. And then she also does not have the caseload that Ms. Collins carried, or the caseload that she carried all year, so that was more than likely increase that this 28.5 amount.
No, sir, Mr. Flores, because Ms. Frazier is an administrator and, Dr. Collins as well was not qualified for the stipends. They, did the case management as part of their job. So there's no monies for them.
So with that, the motion was to approve the consent agenda as presented, to exclude, item 1, just to amend the verbiage. So at this time, if it's okay with the board, I would like to go ahead and make a motion to approve item G1 with the revisions of provide and assist language added to item 3.1 and 3.2.
Second.
We have a second from Vice President Spray. Clerk, can you call for the roll?
Member Concha, oh, sorry.
Question,
Repeat, yeah, I'm sorry, President. I said, is this for the county?
yes.
Okay. So repeat the motion.
So the motion is to approve the MOU between Taos Municipal School District and Taos County for the use of our facilities in the event of an emergency operational period throughout Taos County. And to revise the language on items 3.1 and 2 to say provide and assist with housekeeping efforts, cleaning supplies and other necessary supplies for upkeep of the facilities on item 1, and to add the language, Taos County will provide and assist Taos schools with any other resources needed to protect and secure the designated locations.
Okay.
Is that okay? So there is a motion and a second.
Member Concha,
Yes.
Member King,
Yes.
Secretary Trujillo,
Yes.
Vice President Spray,
Yes.
President Flores.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good job.
Um, just for, being that all this work has gone forward, I know throughout my tenure with the district, there's been a lot of discussion on increasing the instructional hours. I think that, through our next negotiation period. Obviously, that'd be a budgetary impact, but Superintendent Layton, just keep in mind how it can positively affect our students to have them in the classroom more, but also that there's that budgetary impact for the additional hours, which has always kind of been a weights and measures issue, but I do think that it's important to try to get our kids as much instructional time as possible. But then again, knowing that, keeping them attentive also can be an issue, and I don't know if the board has any issues with that or items of conversation they would like to talk about, but it has been approved. I know it's been an item of discussion in the past. We haven't seemed to make any headway on it, but I think it is something to always keep in mind, keeping our kids or increase, even the instructional hours from like 6.5 to 7 would be nice, but nonetheless, I think when we have highly qualified staff and good curriculum, we can address those needs through that time frame. So with the consent agenda being approved, in my first motion and the vote, and then item G1 being approved in the second motion and a vote, we can go ahead and move to item H, upcoming meetings and agenda item.
I know,
We didn't vote on it.
two,
Do we do,
we're into G2,
we can G,
We didn't do
those are the
three or
contracts.
four.
okay, excuse me.
Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah. So the first motion was to remove item G1.
Mhm.
Okay, from there, and then the second motion was to approve item G1 with the language. I guess being that we haven't approved 2, 3, and 4, what would be the impact of taking this back and trying to, Ms. Winters?
Yes, sir.
So the union is, how does the union feel about the increasing the instructional hours? Are they is that something they would
Well, and this is part of the negotiations that are occurred and that were ratified with the negotiations, so. We are, looking at a deadline that's coming up for the retro payment that is by the June 30th. So for our staff, we'd have to go back into negotiations. And then perhaps not meet the deadline for payment.
But Mr. Flores, if I may, are you talking for,
Like the sentiment from the union in regard to like the increasing instructional hours?
the sentiment is, they are very, open to it, however, because it is a change in, working conditions and or result in compensation.
And how,
And they're fine, as a matter of fact, with the 24-25 collective bargaining agreement, like, I'm pretty and shocked that we're able to, that they're working an additional day. I say I'm shocked because it has come up in the past and it was not a problem at all with the union. They are getting paid that an extra day, but this has been brought up in the past for additional time and hours, but because it needs to be negotiated, it has never been very taken towards openly like, yes, we want to do this, but it was very, they were good with that for next year. We
for the
have to
additional
pay
day?
For the additional day. But I know with the, if it's even a half hour, say 6.5 to 7 hours, then it would be, need to be negotiated for that piece as well. If we wanted to look at that in the future.
President Flores, I wanted to just say in the record that I totally support your thinking on this 1,000%. I think we definitely need to look at things that are gonna help our kids at everything that we can think of that would. I also think another thing that might affect this positively would be if we looked at the cell phone use in the class also, in terms of the amount of time they're spending learning as opposed to doing whatever they're doing. I think both those, this kind of adds to the conversation that you're saying that you get more money for your buck if you're learning from your teacher and not allowed to.
And Vice President Spray, if I may, we just was having a team building activity with our campus principals, yesterday, and that is part of the, discussion.
Conversation.
Yes, streamlining our policies across the board, so.
Nice, great. But I just really 1,000% agree with you about looking at more time for the kids to be learning.
Any other
Thank
questions
you.
or comments
Thank
from the
you for
board?
saying.
I think you need to let us know what you were discussing because we didn't hear the conversation.
Yeah,
In regards to,
What is it that you brought up?
oh, you didn't, I just was, just now? I was just saying I'm sorry, I didn't say it loudly.
No, I don't think they heard it either.
Oh, I was just thanking President Flores for bringing up the idea of increasing the number of hours that the kids are in school. And then I also said that if we take a look at the cell phone policy, that also affects when the kids are in school, whether they're paying attention to what they're doing, learning, or they're on their phones. I think that all goes together, kind of conversation. I read somewhere, I've been reading a lot on this cell phone thing, and nationally, they've been saying, you should have your paper, your pencil, and your book on top of your bed, and everything else should be somewhere else. So anyway, we can elaborate on that, but that's what we just talked about. I'm sorry, I won't talk to the team that way anymore. Sorry,
It's just that,
I'll talk to the great divide.
yes.
Is that a future, agenda item that we should have?
Well, and this is what I was mentioning to Vice President Spray, Member King, is that we did have a team building exercise yesterday in here, and it is in discussion with aligning our policies across the district, across the campuses. So we are in current discussions to do that. We are ending the year currently with our principals, so they already know that while they're getting their well-deserved time during the summer, there's a lot to now think about when we are aligning our policies, which will include cell phones.
Thank you for doing that.
Member Concha and King? Sorry.
So if I'm understanding Superintendent Layden, so that's evolving?
That is correct. So part of the platform that I bring is the collaborative approach. And so in order to align our policies, we need to make sure that we do provide input from each of the campuses, spearheaded by our principals, so that we can align our policies. And once we solidify what those policies or updates and revisions will be, then we can bring those so that y'all may review that at your time, at that time.
Yeah, I guess, Dr. Layton, before you came, the principal at the time shared with us the high school cell phone policy. We just kind of gave it to us. I don't know if we talked about it much. President Mark, I don't know if it was kind of like, this is it. And, you know, it was always, I think it was a superintendent search. We were dealing with all that. So I think it's something, you know,
Concerning.
yeah, we could almost fix the problem, as board member Spray said, like, okay. We all went to school, guys, without cell phones. I can't imagine, and I know my wife's on staff at the high school. Kids coming in with phones, that's like, if 5 minutes, that's 5 minutes that you're losing instruction. So maybe a district, you know, we got the summer break, you know, the data is clear. Data is clear that less is better. One-to-one, you know, just getting it on a one-to-one basis, okay? New, whatever the subject may be, you know. My phone's always on mute. I can't imagine if it wasn't, all the noise it is. And you can't focus. There's no, I mean, yeah, I know I'm not.
Well, and so what we've also found is inconsistencies. And so if we have a family member that has an elementary student and a middle school student and a high school student, there's some inconsistencies. And therefore, when I brought our principals together so that we could start those discussions, the plan, our goal is to have all that finalized prior to the school year starting. So that one of my phrases was, how we deliver the message is going to be just as important, the message itself. And so we'll be going through those revisions and bring those forward once finalized prior to the start of the school.
If we can, we could touch on this just real quick on future topics. I think it's important. I have something I'd like to speak on that so we could get through the consent agenda. Are there any other good concerns or questions on the consent agenda items presented? Would anybody like to make a motion for approval in regards to the items 2, 3, and 4 of the consent agenda? I would be happy to go ahead and make a motion to approve items 2, 3, and 4 as presented in the consent agenda. We have a second from Secretary Trujillo. Madam Clerk, could you call for the roll?
Member Concha,
Yes.
Member King,
Yes.
Secretary Trujillo,
Yes.
Vice President Spray,
Yes.
President Flores.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item H is upcoming meeting and agenda items, so I think it'd be very important to discuss cell phone usage and policy in regards to your question, Board Member King, when that was presented at that time. What I understood is that the cell phone policy is dictated by site, so I think each individual site, such as the middle school and the high school, kind of has their own internal policy. So in the future, with the board's direction to the superintendent, it may be wise to develop overall board policy that encompasses and dictates the usage district-wide. I think from what I understood at that presentation, which Dr. Lane was not here for at that time, and it'd be good to have a presentation on cell phones as a future topic and our cell phone policy within the district. I know we've heard a lot of community input and parental input for and against, cell phones. Some parents were, I want my kid to be able to have their phone handy in the event that there's an emergency. I think that in the event of an emergency or an outright emergency, they can contact the school office And, you know, staff could directly go to the classroom and say, you know, such and such student's mother was contacted, we'd like to pull them out of the class, you know.
Yeah, that's the way we grew up.
Yeah,
You know, when someone, you know, when it's, and that's very serious, when the kid has to be called out. There's
family emergency.
exactly, and you know, it's not a good feeling for anyone, but. What we don't want, and we know this, cause you went to Taos High, that little street to be bottleneck with everyone, parents coming. You know, we need to have, first responders needs to be the one on that road and not, you know, everyone's calling, oh, you know, and that's what happened,
Conforming.
yeah.
President Flores, I will, on my school computer, I have a pretty good assessment nationally done about using, just what you're saying about in an emergency. And they said everybody wants to know if there's, for example, God forbid, a school shooting event. Everybody wants to know right away that their kid's okay, and what the professionals are saying is that in the event of a school shooting, the last thing you want is kids on their phone talking, because you want them quiet and hiding. You do not want them calling and talking. You don't want the phones ringing. You don't want nothing like that. So it's an interesting article, and I will forward it to everybody, just because I think we're gonna be talking about this in all seriousness. We should do some research about it individually before we make decisions.
You know, when I was in high school, being one of the, you know, all due respect, one of the younger board members here, he and Miss Concha, we graduated together. I didn't get my first cell phone till I enlisted in the military and was away from home, where my mother sent me a cell phone, so I could get in touch with her. But we never had that issue of having a phone in the classroom. And I think, as a district, we should, you know, visit those policies, see what we currently have. And have input from the board and, you know, recommendations from our superintendent and staff. As to, what could best serve the educational environment.
President Flores, one of the presentations at the last conference that we went to was on cell phones. And that was by, I don't know what his title is, by Mr. Colo.
Right.
Former state auditor.
He was a former state auditor, but again, it's very concerning what is happening through all the social media, the algorithms that are being generated to the kids. And one thing that's opened up, it's producing children that the secrecy of what they watch, the violence, everything that's going on in the social media is not conducive to our children.
President Flores, also in that article I was mentioning, they said that.
And they're suing these, and they're actually,
The Meta, yeah.
yeah,
And he wants to talk to each district individually who wanna be part of that. It's a class action suit. Schreiber, it's the first name I gotta have. Schreiber is the second name of the law firm. And it's in Albuquerque, and he will come up. He will come up upon it. In fact, he's gonna be
do a
here.
presentation.
Yeah, he can be on the agenda. And I think this totally dovetails with student achievement.
Right.
It's very simple. I mean, we can all sit here, and one of the beauties about Taos is the quietness. So it's again, cell phone is not quiet. So I think we can cell phones are in, like, it's random actually throughout our district. So we have a standard policy, and maybe we get some metrics that improve with kids learning instruction from the teacher. I think we saw a couple of things with one, you know, and we're obviously first is safety, but second is instruction. And they're there to learn.
President Flores, in that article that I mentioned just a few minutes ago, they also, in every single case, the student achievement went up, every single one of them. That's what they're finding nationally. So it kind of all it does make sense.
So I think for a future meeting, we have an agenda topic in regards to, you know, visiting our cell phone policy. I think we don't definitely need to have it at our next regular meeting, but give our superintendents things
Before
to.
school starts, so they all look forward to coming back.
It's here Thursday, but I don't think we can meet with him. We can meet with him.
No, I'm just saying.
He's gonna be good, yeah.
Are
He's
you
gonna
talking
be,
about Dr. Ken Sparta?
Well,
Brian
Brian
Cologne.
Cologne.
Yeah, Brian Comedian Cologne. Yes, all laughing.
There's an item that I would like to bring forward to the board, something that I've dealt with, so. And we talked about it, prior to your arrival, Dr. Layan, is the start of our school, days. I have an employee at the town who has a young child. We start our workday at 7 and at 8. We have a staggered start time for some of my staff. At Enos Garcia, school starts at 8:30. And I actually heard from other members within the community as to why we start school at 8:30 when, you know, a good majority of employers or employee men starts, you know, about 8 AM. We have worked out the schedule with this employee so that he could arrive after dropping off his child. But that's not always the case where the employer is willing to work with the employee. We have parents that are taking their kids with them to work and then having to leave work to go drop off their students. At 8:30, I know that, when I took my children to school, you know, about 15 years ago, elementary school started at 7:45 AM or at like 7:50 AM, which allowed, the parents to drop their child off and then make it to work timely. So I think it's something that we should visit, as to if all our elementary schools are starting at the same time, and what would be the possibility of adjusting the school day start time to something like 7:45 AM.
Does the high school started to 7:45?
Yes.
You definitely will revisit. I know potentials, of course, is transportation impact and routes, but it's something that we can do.
Yeah, just something to discuss, I mean, and maybe have the reasoning behind it so that the board could also share with the community, because I heard from maybe 2 other members in the community and this one employee that I work with about, that it just kind of impacts, and a lot, 90% of our community, we're blue collar people, and work starts at 8, and you've got to figure out how to get your kid to school or take them with you to work or go to work late. And then, kind of impact that. So I think it's just a healthy discussion for the community, maybe to visit along with the cell phone policy. Any other future topics? I know we don't want to bombard our newly arrived superintendent, but
We're talking about a retreat, President Mark, about,
Finishing the one with Elena.
well, bringing Dr. Layton up to, hey, this is what we've been talking about, discussion. Now that, now that the, superintendent position has been filled, let's talk about board policies, what future, I know we've talked about, the school that you graduated at in 68, getting legislative, sitting with Senator Gonzalez.
so what we could do is maybe we could schedule a board retreat so that we could notify the public. It's a publicly noticed workshop where each board member, we could discuss. Typically it's like a 4-hour session, with all due respect. I know seems lengthy, but we've sat here for longer. Where we could talk about some strategic planning for the district. I know I think each board member may have some stuff they'd like to bring forward. Member King has talked about possible construction of a new high school.
Same location.
Also, teacher housing
Yeah.
has been an issue. But also aside from that workshop, I know I don't wanna death by meeting, but we also, I think, should have a strategic planning meeting with you where we can review our strategic plan that was developed. I believe it was finalized last year. Kind of bring you up to date on that, give you time to review it. Do we want to bring the ladies that helped us develop the strategic plan forward? Do we need
I
that?
don't think we, no.
No,
No,
Okay.
what us, Ms. Gallegos had said she wanted to finish her original retreat. Remember, we were gonna do a second part just to.
Yeah, Naomi, she had the leadership, she was,
She had wanted to finish, she didn't get finished that day because we were here only 6 hours. That's all.
yeah, there was a part, yeah.
She had not quite finished. Remember, she said she'd like to come back and finish that up, just to remind everybody.
So I think we should probably have a workshop so that the board could bring forward some priorities or concerns or items of discussion to the superintendent. He hasn't been here, but a little less than 30 days and he hit the ground running pretty fast.
I appreciate it. I like to say I'm 4 weeks old.
Um, in the summer months, I think our meetings are just monthly. I believe so. Do we have it? Yeah, we just have monthly meetings, so we could probably set aside a weekend or a weekday. I hate to encumber staff from their vacation time, so maybe you could talk with your leadership cabinet and see when would be a good time before a lot of them go on vacations, go camping, spend time with family. I think the last thing we want to do is come back to work, but this is a good time to actually plan for the next school year and also maybe line up some of our initiatives or initiatives from all staff, you know, not just the board. I don't think that the board should really, that we should work really on a top-down approach, but also more of a collaborative approach with staff and hear how some of our initiatives or priorities affect them. So we probably do want to have directors present if possible.
Okay, absolutely. We're going to schedule that.
Also, President Flores, you and I had talked about having an update for the whole board on, because our audit committee gets this, but an update for the whole board on the special audit and also the federal lawsuits. Remember several months
I
ago.
think Superintendent Ligon has been in correspondence with the special auditor. We are kind of working tentatively on that. I just saw an email come through about the special audit. I didn't get a chance to review it. Could you maybe address the board as to what that's looking like? Maybe getting a meeting with the special auditor?
Yes, I'm reaching out to the auditors specifically so that we can provide an update in executive session. So that we can at least know at this point in time, where are we at
Mhm.
and what discussions need to take place to see for any closures or any length of time that we need to continue. So that is already in communication with the auditors and the attorneys.
Okay, President Flores, you and I had also asked for an update on the federal lawsuit recently. I don't think we've had one unless I missed it.
So our next, in hearing you, Vice President Cynthia, so in the email that I received from our board counsel, Mrs. Gallegos, so it says here where Dr. Leyen, Superintendent Leyen did reach out, and we were trying to get an executive session for that meeting to be updated on the special audit. Mrs. Gallegos, our board counsel, says that she's not available on June 18th, which is our next regularly scheduled meeting. So if the board would maybe like to have a special meeting where we can have a brief update, maybe sometime early July or last week in June.
Last week in June would be better for that.
Yeah.
Out.
Sooner than
The first week of,
I'm not
Which
doing
one?
last week in June.
Did I hear the last week in June?
It's my birthday.
Okay. Well,
I mean, I would be here some of that week, but not all of it.
What I can do,
Okay.
what the president has, provide some options to the board.
Okay.
And then see what we can schedule it, that way we can get our calendars in sync
Mhm.
with that. And then at that point, I'll request a special meeting.
I think we do want to talk about, expediting the
I mean, I could do it on Zoom, I could, so that's a possibility.
So your birthday is Wednesday, 26th?
Yeah, but I can,
Can you,
Zoom.
What about, what are we looking at, like prior to the 26th? When
Yeah,
when are we
25th?
out of town?
I'm gonna be out of town from the 24th to the 27th, but I could do it online, not on the 26th, but I could do it on Zoom from where I am. Not a big deal.
So the 24th is a Monday.
I'll be on Monday and come back Thursday.
we can do it on Friday, 28th?
I can, thank you.
Then we try to entertain a special,
That would be the best time for me too.
I will try to reach out and I'll reach out to our attorneys to make sure that they're available as well.
So we can-
Tentatively the 28th.
In the morning, are we gonna do Zoom or is she gonna come up?
That's what I need to communicate with her.
So 28th is,
Would y'all prefer the afternoon?
I think mornings are better.
No, not for me.
Doesn't matter to me.
That's,
I'm working.
Oh, you're still doing your thing.
I'm like, I don't know. that.
We can work that out with Dr. Layton.
yeah,
I'll reach out and find out best time for all of us.
okay.
That's fine.
So we covered, future topics, covered a couple there. I think one of them, just to recap, would be, so strategic planning, a workshop. I think maybe what we can do is encompass, board priorities or initiatives. I think some of you, which would allow each board member to, maybe bring forward, some initiatives or items of concern. I would like to ask each board member, down the line to maybe put some thought to, items of priority that I know everybody holds something different in their heart or off the top of their head that, we can, bring forward to try to, work towards in the coming months and year. And, things take time, so it may, move into the following school year, but I think that'd be good. So at that point in time, we could discuss our strategic plan, maybe spend about an hour or two on the strategic plan and maybe an hour or two on, board priorities and initiatives, that we would like to work on. I've heard from each board member a couple ones individually and speaking with them, so that'd be a good time. So maybe we could look at that, Dr. Layan. And then we also touched on, cell phone policy and maybe looking at adjusting, our school, day, starting time if feasible. So that's covered. And then if the board has any other, items of concern or future topics, please feel free to reach out to Superintendent Layton. And present those or myself if you would like, and I could work with the superintendent, but either or you're more than, entitled to discuss those with the superintendent, individually. Item H2 is our next regular board meeting, which is scheduled for June 18th, 2024. I'm not sure what the agenda looks like, moving forward. I know that the staff is working on that, but if possible, maybe we could start looking at one of those items for, future topics, or just move that to where those future topics can be discussed in our strategic planning, workshop. And then, yes, we're looking.
Agenda item, I know we talked at, Ranchos about, our district real estate. Is it gonna be an agenda item kind of summary? And then Dr. Layton, we were talking a little bit about the vacancies, like, I know,
Update.
yeah, so.
What vacancy?
Just an update, as our last board meeting, Member King mentioned, see if we could provide at least an update on our vacancies at the time. He also presentation on the land. So we are looking at a presentation, for the land. We'll get that ready for you. But, and as well as an update of the vacancies at that time.
And then just in regards to speaking about land, that is an item that can be discussed in executive session of real estate. So maybe we want to just consult with our legal team. If that is covered in executive session, not that we don't want to be transparent with the public, but sometimes those are sensitive items as to what the school district.
And I think Gino, you weren't there, you were at your retreat. Gino mentioned a title company, First Mesco Title is really the only title company that has the capacity to help us. Cause I know Gino's her attorney was doing stuff that we could be, you know, she's charging $200 an hour. The title, First Mesco Title would charge us, I don't know, 25 an hour. I mean, that's a lot of money. You know, we look at cost. I think that topic was mentioned. We need a title company because Cherisy Taos is down to the shell of their company. So we really want to just keep that very.
Yeah, so I think maybe at some point we could figure out the best point of action in regards to discussing our real estate. I think that is something that by statute we can talk about in executive session. And then come out and summarize.
President Flores, I'm on that committee for the land, looking at what we own and trying to make sure everything is organized to give a report in that executive session. I would like to suggest that we have Olivia Mondragon in there too, because he's the one who's actually gone around and seen all the land, and he's the one who got also the GPS. He'd be a good research person for us, and then he can leave after he makes the presentation.
One of the initiatives that have been brought up by the board members and you know, in discussion with board member King and in agreement with the board is, you know, looking at our land and possibly, you know, having
Workforce housing.
workforce housing for our teachers. You know, the price of housing here in Taos is extremely high, and trying to recruit and retain teachers has always been a item of concern because of what they pay and what they get paid, and what they pay for housing, what they get paid. So yeah, let's keep that discussion going.
Yeah, I think we can help ourselves out there. And it'd be a win-win. They'll have decent housing, we'll have certified staff. Test scores goes up and
Well,
metrics.
on that note too, with the additional housing that is, that the county and the town are looking at,
Mhm.
you know, that just could be a huge plug for us.
Yes. President
Because
Flores.
it's going to, excuse me, it's going to be, geared to the upper, not just lower, lower income based. What is it, not the finance authority, I can't remember what authority they're using, but it's a lending company, but they've raised up the income to where, the moderate income, MFA, thank you.
Sure.
And they'd be able to afford versus just low income. Because some people will not meet the low income bracket because of their income, but they might meet the MFA
It's
standard.
New Muscle.
And
Finance.
MS, yeah, but it's different, board member Trujillo, and it's actually, we have a really nice, unique, situation. We already own our property. The county is just, but I talked to Brent, county manager about, I think they bought the land next door to them, where the Blue Fiesta was at. And he says, you know, and also, County Commissioner Romero, when we're at the commencement, he was talking about workforce solution. We can, you know, that's gonna be a lot of money just on infrastructure, just drawing up the plans. We can already get housing at some of the sites, have staff there, and it won't, you know, we don't have to hire an architect. Maybe Silva's in the septic, if there's not a septic system hooking up to the town. But I think there's a lot of, we have a lot, I think less red tape, so to speak, lack of a better word, which is great. I mean, and that's very fortunate that the district has real estate
Yeah, but then we'd have to go into a debt factor
Yeah,
to be
well-
able to finance something, that project to that.
Discuss
Yeah,
that.
we could talk to
Yeah,
council.
but
about-
again,
I think
that's
there's
just
finance, yeah.
things going up.
Yeah, so we have some topics and some food for thought for Superintendent Legan. We'll follow up with him and, just for the sake of time, our next regular meeting is June 18th, 2024 at the administration building, starting at 6 p.m. Item I is adjourn, so move to adjourn.
Second.
We have a second from Vice President Spray. Go for the roll.
Member Concha,
Yes.
Member King,
Yes.
Secretary Trujillo,
Yes.
Vice President Sprague,
Yes.
President Flores.
Yes. Thank you.
Just trying to give me time, please.
For the record, it is 6:55.
Water's not.